Hey, welcome back, everybody. I'm going to talk about one of our greatest nemesis in this industry these days is line item proposals, having to detail out pricing in your proposal to help the buyer understand God knows whatever it is they're asking for. And not only is it kind of a pain, it's probably not the best practice. However, there are circumstances where we need to consider this. Before I get into that, I do want to talk about three things that you really can't do anything about. Number one, I've been in the industry over 40 years. I have watched the battle of control of in-house AV services being provided at a property and exclusivity, inside pricing, penalties, all of the things that go with being an outside provider trying to work inside a property that is contracted with an AV company for basic services. And this battle has been going on for decades, and it swings. It goes up and down. And right now, the in-house AV companies are wresting more control. They're taking on more profit centers for the hotels, like, internet, rigging, power, even business services. There's so many things that people are doing, but it's not going to change. So this push-pull between inside and outside providers in the AV services world inside of venues is never going to end. Now, knowing that, how do you live your life differently? One, quit complaining about it. Let's move on. What can you do? And one of the things I want to talk about today is what you can do. Another thing that's going on that's never going to change is that institutional buyers, procurement, anybody who's designated to scrutinize what suppliers provide in terms of quotes, proposals, estimates, those buyers are going to demand details that they do not understand. They don't actually need them, but they think they do because why wouldn't they if there's a detail available? And these advisors, don't know that the individual prices don't matter. They believe they do. They don't think that those prices don't matter, and somehow it's something that you're assigning. So institutional buyers, somebody is always going to be looking for a line item quote. Like I said at the head of the podcast, we can't fix it. How are we going to live with it? When does it apply? And that's what we'll talk about today. And the third thing that people always talk about, and they always complain, and we can't do anything about is, yes, of course, taxes, right? Taxes, owners complain about taxes because if they have a good year, they have a big tax bill at the end of the year, which I'm thinking, well, complaining is probably not the right thing. You should be kind of celebrating. You should be having a little ceremony where you send the IRS the check or hit send, to go into your portal to make that payment. That should be a celebration. Thank goodness you could do that. It's like paying off a bank loan. This is money you owe other people. So I have pretty low tolerance for owners who complain about taxes. What they're telling me is they were unprepared. They didn't manage their cash flow. They didn't look ahead. It's a really bad look. If taxes take you down, you screwed up. We know they're there. We know what they're going to be within a few percentage points. It's never a surprise. However, if it is, that tells me more about your business than the state of our tax system. So, having said all that, let's get into that one thing that everybody constantly calls me about. And that is how to deal with those institutional buyers who are looking for a line item proposal so that they can do some voodoo comparison. Are you ready? Welcome to your weekly dose of uncommon sense, helpful insights, and tough love. The Intentional Success Podcast comes to you through the generous support of Merch Crew. Merch Crew is the smart way to book quality AV freelancers and protect your business. Your choice, your rates. Merch Crew handles contracts, insurance, and payments so you save time, cut costs, and reduce risk. Start today at merchcrew.com. All right, here we go. So you send out this beautiful one-page proposal. I'm sorry, one price proposal. It has several pages in it. You had a little bit of marketing in there. You had the narrative. You had the overview, the customer request, the scope of work response, some recommendations on some options, breakdown on the pricing and the terms and conditions for this. Any other caveats, the inclusions, the exclusions, all of this goes into the proposal, and it's all built around one price and maybe some additional sub prices for some options or add-ons that the customer can choose at a later date. And you've gone to all the trouble of figuring out what this costs and presenting them a price, and they turn around and immediately say to you, well, this is great. Can you break that all down for me? And your response, of course, is always break it down into what? Well, other companies have sent us a proposal where they tell us the camera model and the price and the model of the mixer and the price and which wireless microphones they're using and the price. Why can't you do that? Well, there's a lot of reasons I can't do that. One, it's kind of a pain in the butt. Two, I don't actually know what I'm going to send. And three, I haven't won the job yet. So why am I worried about this? But buyers don't understand that. Buyers do think that you're a rental business and you're getting your prices from a rental list and that you made the rental list in order to get to the price. However, many of my followers and many of my clients and club members don't use rental price lists to get to the price on a show anymore. They go about it differently. They look at their actual costs and they apply margin to it, which we can't even begin to get into with customers. I mean, what business has that conversation with their customers other than to say, well, you know, our costs keep going up. So sure, your costs keep going up and we can show them that. But there's a point in time where the restaurant doesn't tell you what the price of lettuce is and whether or not you want it on your hamburgers. Either you want it or you don't. So there's a lot of things that we do that don't really demand or shouldn't require line item proposals, except the customers don't know any better than to ask for it. So why are they asking? Let's understand this first. First of all, they're looking for a relative basis on the pricing. They want to be able to compare two suppliers and see what they're getting for key products to see if, maybe they're getting a better deal over here than over there. Now, why they can't just look at the scope of work and the bottom line, I'll never understand that. However, somebody taught them, probably us, to look at those individual line items. The other thing they're looking for is they're asking you to expose your fit and finish. What quality of equipment are you putting on here? Are you, quoting, conference projectors in a general session? Are you using, cheapo spot cams instead of using full camera rigs? What speakers are you using? Are you using some beat up old Yamaha speakers with the front screen kicked in, or are you using some fancy new Martin Audio line array rig? This helps them understand that. Or am I comparing apples to oranges? Are you providing the best high-end equipment, or are you providing very workable middle-of-the-road equipment that's probably adequate for my needs? But again, does the buyer actually know? Or do they have an advisor who thinks they know? But that's why they're looking for it. They want to look at your price basis on products to see if there's comparisons, and they want to see your fit and finish of the value of the equipment that you're providing. And the third reason they put out these line item proposals is they're trying to leverage your fear of losing, or in other words, not winning the job in my lexicon, against your need for profit or your need for revenue. If you're a revenue-driven company, you say instead of saying we didn't win the job, you say we lost it. If you're a gross profit-driven company, you will say we didn't win the job instead of saying we lost it, because you understand that you can't lose something you didn't already have. And if you win, what you want is gross profit and hopefully the opportunity for more gross profit in the future. So how does this bring us all back to line item bids? Well, customers need more information. They think they need it. They don't always know how to use it. They kind of push back when you try and counsel them on it. And the diehard institutional buyers are the ones who are really left, who are really digging in, that think that they control the marketplace and that they can tell you, hey, you can't charge me that much for that. Other people are charging this for that. You should charge that. Other companies are using this product. Why don't you use it? And creating a lot of conversation that isn't necessary to validate whether or not you're good at what you do, whether or not you're providing is going to be adequate for the needs. There are other ways to find this out besides looking at, words and numbers that came off a spreadsheet out of the rental inventory list. So when you find yourself in a situation where you are actually in a competitive bidding situation, you've used all of your best arguments about why the line item pricing is not going to change your price. It's not going to change what you send. It's not how you do business. You're not a rental company. You're providing a service. You've gone through the litany of things to justify how you got to a single price. And they're still insisting that in order for you to participate in this process, you have to provide a proposal in the same format as everyone else. Now, other industries do this as well. This is not an uncommon tactic in procurement because it makes procurement's life easier, right? Institutional buyers are often backed by procurement. You may be not talking directly to the procurement office, but the person who you are talking to has to report back to them and say, hey, I went out and got 5 quotes and look, they're all in the same format and they're all saying basically the same thing, but I would like to use this company who's only 5% more than this company, and here's why, and maybe they get approval. We'd like to think that magical world exists, but no, there's still probably some bean counter out there going, well, you can't use this company because they're having to charge trucking and travel. So even though their price is less, they're not a good value because they're hiding something from you. Whatever logic they have flowing around in their head. But if you do have to send out that line item proposal, you have made the choice to play in this environment. Here's some things that you might want to do to, one, protect your line item position, which you chose to do a single item pricing for the entire job. Here's how you protect that. So number one, when you send that level of detail in, however much detail is necessary, you make a note on there that says this is itemized pricing for reference only. Now, what does that mean? Well, you can interpret it in a lot of ways, but if this is reference only, and if the client references it and tries to leverage against that, saying, well, can you lower the price of this and raise the price of that? You can say, no, these are for reference only. You see the comparison and how I value it. Just because you value it differently doesn't change what my cost basis is. So this is for reference only. I'm providing you detail, and I'm taking away some of your power to push back or negotiate on those individual items by telling you in advance I'm not going to do that. They're still going to ask. Tell them anyway. Then you've got a leg to stand on. Number two, you also have to put in this proposal that you, the seller, are the final arbiter of what is minimally required to do the job well. There is no final arbiter on what's the best way to do the job. We'll run out of money before we ever get there. So the client may want to spend more money, but if they want to spend less, they can't tell you what to take out. Only you get to say what can come out. Because if it's required, it's required. They're not qualified to do that, and it's your reputation that's on the line. So you're taking away that privilege that they want of being able to pick and choose the line items they want to see. The third thing you need to mention in this is that to the client is that we have a single negotiating point on this deal. If I have met your scope of work, if I'm fulfilling your needs, if I understand the event and the overview, we're simply down to price. Okay. Now, there may be multiple pricing things in your proposal for many reasons. There's the baseline equipment, which is very important to specify. Here's the minimum equipment that it takes to do this job. And then here are the enhancements or options or add-ons that you've requested or you would like to consider, and those are separate pricing. So each one of those can have an individual price, but if the buyer wants that breakdown, you have to make it clear to them, I'm not creating negotiating points. The only negotiating point that I will deal with is either this bottom line price, or maybe there's a discount or some other factor in there, a management fee that is something that the client can negotiate. There has to be something that's negotiable. At the end of the day, it's the price. Why not just say that I can negotiate the total price, but not the price on an individual item? So we can put other caveats in there. We can put a caveat in there that says the quote must be considered as a whole. Items and services cannot be separated. In other words, we can't just take, well, I love your equipment pricing, but your labor pricing's out of line. I just want to get the gear from you and I'm going to get the labor from somebody else. No, you can put that in there. No, that's not an option. I will not provide you just one thing. I am providing you everything it takes to get your show done, and I'm not going to negotiate off of that. So this gives us an opportunity to continue to participate, but it still preserves the ground that we have of we are in control. We are the arbiter of what's going to work, and how we got to our pricing is it's not necessarily a secret. It is kind of unique to you because your cost basis is always going to be different. Everybody's prices can be the same, but if everybody's costs are different, we end up with different results in those businesses. And that's exactly what's going on here. There are buyers out there whose job is to assume that you make more money and do everything they can to stop it, which means that's money they get to keep. And if they're used to negotiating multi-billion-dollar deals, your little $10,000 gig should be a piece of cake for them, right? It is harder work than it sounds, and the process sometimes doesn't yield the results that they're looking for, but you can participate, and you can do it by simply adding 3 bullet points to your proposal that says, I'm providing detail on your request. This is for reference pricing only. We are the final arbiter of what is appropriate to use on the job and won't deviate from our technical requirements. And the blended discount that you're getting off the equipment is also tied to a payment schedule or other terms that says, if you want to pay this price, you have to pay it in this amount of time. And those 3 things right there will establish your position as a supplier, and hopefully will be enough to level the playing field so that you're considered among other suppliers. Now, at the end of the day, if a customer is just a price shopper, they're going to keep pushing until they have enough information so that they feel that they have price shopped to their heart's content, and they will go on about their business, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, number 1, decide whether this is worth playing in. And number 2, give them just enough information with the caveats that go along with it to say, here's how you can use this information and here's how you can't use it. So I hope that clears some things up. I hope this gives you the opportunity to have better conversations. And it won't change the fact that many institutional buyers are getting a courtesy bid from you because they're going to stay with the incumbent or the low bidder or the local company or in-house AV or whatever thing they're rooted in that makes them feel comfortable and safe. Your job is to pull them away from that with better value proposition, better use of their money, but it doesn't always work because we're dealing with, you guessed it, human beings. So go out there and be the best human you can. And I know you can move some of these jobs farther along in your pipeline if you just give up a little bit more information. I hope you got something out of this. Hey, if you've got any questions or ideas on a future podcast, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to talk to you about it. If this episode of the Intentional Success Podcast has made an impact on your day, then please leave a review and don't forget to like and subscribe. This podcast has been brought to you by the helpful folks at Merch Crew.